Hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Worth It Then, Worth It Now. A segment where, well, I suppose we change the scope. I'll have to work with my intro rhythm. But look, this is an opportunity for me to look at older games, more than 12 months old, have a bit of a revisit, trip down memory lane, put them out here for your nostalgia, but also I line it up with a sale too. So today we're looking at Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. And it is on really deep sale at the time of this video's recording and going up. So maybe go check it out. Maybe you're like me and you haven't played it since launch, and so going back to it will be an interesting trip, I suppose. Now, talking about this game with any sort of critical anything, I feel like is a bit of a minefield, because the most recent framing in modern times around Black Flag is in comparison to Skull and Bones. And generally speaking, the populist opinion, you're with us or against us kind of stance, is Skull and Bones is shit and Black Flag is fantastic and smashes it absolutely incredibly blah blah blah, right? Whatever. So it should be nothing but praise for Black Flag and criticism for Skull and Bones. Now I stand apart because, and I should revisit Skull and Bones to be honest, because it's been probably a year anyway since I looked at it, but I enjoyed that, all right? I enjoyed it for what it was, as opposed to disliking it for what it wasn't. I think a lot of people, and it's not unfair, honestly, to be set against it because it wasn't Black Flag 2. I understand that for sure, but Skull and Bones for what it is, which is something released in the current years of live service, MMO type treadmill games, as a cruising around as a pirate ship MMO type game, I enjoyed it, especially the way the economy works. I'm not trying to convince you or anything like that, but I am also trying to point out that I don't just subscribe to the popularist opinion of it, because I can't deny that I found it was really fun for what it was. Now, does Black Flag hold up? It does, but I also think in people's rush to condemn Skull and Bones, perhaps they have romanticized this game retroactively as well. The reason I mention that is I've only just dipped in for a little bit to get B-roll, and it has been a pretty janky experience. And I'm not talking about graphical fidelity or modern system performance issues or anything like that. I'm running it on PC in 2025, so honestly, it's all running fine. But the platforming is not that fantastic. It's a little bit fiddly if we're being honest, and I can't get over how much jank I've gotten from interacting with enemy troopers' AIs, getting glitched out against walls and freaking out and doing kind of Bethesda level stuff, right? Now again, I'm not trying to bash the game. I think as far as like all the voice acting and the characterization straight off the bat, really cool. This Edward dude is incredibly charismatic, and as soon as he hits the tarmac of basically within the first 5 minutes stealing someone else's identity and kind of just going with it, it really does tap that kind of roguish Han Solo type vibe of this guy is just flying by the seat of his pants and he's playing it very cool, and he's not insufferable or unlikable or anything like that. So they nail this character, and there's no reason, no wonder why people love him so much and remember him fondly. It's just between the writing and the character construction, it's really strong. And then your sidekick, I can't remember his name, but he's like the fat dude out of The Last Samurai, and they're channeling that sort of British aristocracy, but also, his wanderlust is, oh, I'm a husband with a child, and I can't go off on an adventure, and that wouldn't be very that wouldn't be very gentlemanly of me. So the sparring between those two straight out of the bat is just so charming and so endearing. But yeah, like I said, this game is still quite kind of janky and clunky and a bit messy, but I still like it. Like I'm enraptured by it. But again, I'm trying to be as cool-headed and calm with this feedback, and even I'm not going after anyone, but I do feel like some people have really become absorbed in the anti-modern Ubisoft opinion, and that the yesteryear version of their games could do no harm. I'm one of the last holdouts for Assassin's Creed, and while I didn't hate my time with Shadows, it is so not an Assassin's Creed game, it's not funny. Which comes to another point. Black Flag to me is a great pirate game. It really is. And the more you get into it and the sea shanties and the cruising around, they really lent into that part of Assassin's Creed 3, which was essentially just a bit of a spin-off spaghetti at the wall, not quite mini-game, but a mechanic they were just flexing and trying out in 3, but it was so well received it informed Black Flag. And I really do feel like, and I don't want to necessarily use the word tourist because people will take that personally. It's used very disparagingly these days in a lot of gaming discourse. But I think you get the idea. A lot of people got on board with the explosive mainstream success of Black Flag. And perhaps you're one of them watching this, reminiscing about it. You have no interest in Assassin's Creed, never played an Assassin's Creed up until Black Flag, but you got on that. So in its own right, as a pirate game, it's quite excellent, and it's one of the greatest. There is no doubt. I will not go after that. However, from the perspective of an Assassin's Creed game, this was the beginning. This was the genesis point of what's wrong with Assassin's Creed now. And I think perhaps Ubisoft took some false positive learnings from the Black Flag thing. So here's the thing. I would quiz someone who was just a Black Flag enthusiast. Did you enjoy the animus real life outside of the pirating part? And the overwhelming response is going to be, what are you fucking talking about? I don't remember that, or it was crap, right? So I think Ubisoft thought that that was the way forward. And look, just the quick history lesson is this. Up until this game, the first 3 games, well, it's more than 3, but we'll call it a trilogy, was Desmond's saga. And it was all done through his perspective. The Animus was this whole battleground that the individual tapped into their DNA stream. And it followed this back and forth between the histories of his ancestors and the modern conflict of the Templars with this sort of 2012 Armageddon intercept coming. And I still don't want to spoil it because it might be one of the single greatest jaw-dropping moments in video game history of all time, but that's in Assassin's Creed 2. There's a meta, let's say, fourth wall break. That's all I'll really say. And all of this got pivoted and abandoned going into 4, where they started playing with this idea of, God, I'm really getting into the lore now, but the Templar bad guy faction kind of making the Animus technology a mainstream entertainment novelty. Think of it like the next thing after a VR headset. And all of this was framed around this meta idea of Abstergo being a wink at the camera stand-in for Ubisoft. And replaying Black Flag, it's so fucking cringe, it kills me. So you're this operator moving around the most insufferable workplace with beanbags and all this sort of bullshit, but it's clearly an Ubisoft office, and that's what they're doing. Everyone's bloody French in this. It's so on the nose, it kills me. And I feel like out of the success of Black Flag, one of the false positives they took away from it is that that's what we wanted. And that's why these days it's kind of unrecognizable what the Animus story ever was. And it was so powerful, and it was really a big part of Assassin's Creed. So yeah, I'm a bit bloody butthurt about that, I'll admit. So that's here, and that's infuriating, and it's fascinating going back to seeing where it started, and it just became a footnote alongside what has now become a James Bond license to make an Assassin's Creed in whatever fucking setting they want, regardless of Desmond or story or DNA or anything. Like, if you played Shadows first and nothing else, you'd have no idea what the Animus is. But look, that's my thoughts going back to Black Flag. It's on sale. Check it out for yourself, right? It's super cheap, so, you'd be mad not to pick it up, for sure. And make up your own mind. Get out there, go pirating the 7 seas. Again, all that stuff is the strong point. It's the reason that you play this game. And while, yeah, there is jank in there, again, my commentary around that is less that the jank is bad per se. I mean, so many people have turned a blind eye to Bethesda's jank for bloody decades now because they enjoy the content of the game. However, that's an interesting aside. I'm pretty sure it's fairly public knowledge now that the Oblivion remaster is about to drop, and I'm really curious to see how that'll be received. If people that have a romantic memory of Oblivion originally will just overlook all the messy jank and think of it as charming, or perhaps on the back of things like Starfield and Fallout 76, and they're a bit more bitter and against it and got their hackles up, maybe this will be a sort of crushing moment and it'll hurt their nostalgia for the game when they realize that they've always been a fucking mess. I think it's just people's sensitivities and access to talking heads on the internet have changed the narrative and made it seem like only the modern games are a mess. And that was one of the more interesting, even for me, an eye-opening experience going back to Black Flag, just to put a bow on all of this, in that, yeah, I think people have a romantic view of how functional and how much better this game was than the modern Ubisoft entries. Anyway, again, it's going for dollars, so pick it up and make up your mind on your own. But that was one of the most sort of arresting and shocking things for me, is that there'll be endless compilations of glitchy stormtroopers from Star Wars Outlaws. And while I, shock horror, I enjoyed my time with Star Wars Outlaws as well. And yeah, there was some jank in there, but it wasn't so terrible. But going back to this, I'm sort of like, I think the jank was always there, honestly, and people have just sort of gotten a bit more sensitive to it in current year than they were 10 years ago. Anyway, team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.